Welcome everyone to a live Q&A because I am announcing a very interesting project I've been working on for many months that I started filming back in January and February, and then we went down deep into editing all these complex stories and history to make you a very exciting documentary about New York City and coffee and how it changed the world. The Caffeinated City, that's the name of the documentary. It's coming out on YouTube, 7 p.m. premiere. Stay tuned. I'm super excited to show you an awesome documentary that showcases the history of coffee in New York City, how it changed not just America, but the world, and meeting roasters, baristas, coffee shop owners, and many other New Yorkers on what is New York City coffee and everything that goes into making New York City coffee such an iconic symbol of New York, because everyone knows the blue cup, everyone knows these to-go cups in New York. New York coffee culture has spread around the world in media and movies, in music videos, in even musicals, in countless ways. So stay tuned, 7 p.m. Here on YouTube. The Caffeinated City is going to premiere live. And after that, I'm going to have a Q&A. This Q&A is going to be only up here temporarily. So feel free to ask me anything that you would like right now. And we'll just chat and enjoy ourselves. So welcome everyone. Nice to see you here. I'm Ariel. This is Urbanist. I'm so glad so many people are tuning in. Hello, Alicia. Hello, Dave. Hello, Nebul. Feel free to ask me anything. Just in general. I'm happy to answer it. Aside from personal questions, ask me anything about travel, about coffee, about New York, about how it is making a documentary. Justine says, how is the weather in New York City? The weather in New York City is up and down and all around. New York City was very cold. It was sweater weather last week, where I felt like I needed to dress for fall. I needed like my flannels and a jacket. And then a few days after, it was 90 degrees and extremely humid and sunny. And it was like a tank top weather. And then now it's 80 degrees and humid. So it's up and down here in New York. It's a roller coaster ride. Hello, Michele. Hello, Danielle. Hello, Tanya. Have you been interested in going to Portugal? I have been interested in going to Portugal. I don't have plans for it yet, but I do want to go. Yeah, you know what? I haven't been proactive in making plans about going to Portugal. Not yet. But I'm excited. Let me know where I should go in Portugal. Joe says, do you like dark roast? Yes, I prefer dark roast. I personally prefer dark roast. I really love Italian style coffee. Dark, nutty, chocolatey. That's my preferred style of coffee. For sure. And the way I prefer it served is either espresso, a short Americano, or a Freddo espresso. Brown Eyed Girl says, nice to see you again. Yeah, next big location clue. I am featuring 2 countries that I have been to before, and I'm super excited to go again. So you'll be seeing new countries on live stream late September to mid-October. So I'm traveling for a month around there, and you'll be seeing different places around 2 countries that I've been to before. So that's the hint so far. Isaac says, have you heard of Jesus Christ today? Yes. He's a cool dude. He's my homie. Bella says, how would you compare coffee in other parts of the world to what you find in New York? This is what the documentary in essence is about. It answers that question. I'll tell you the short answer is the interesting thing about New York is that you can literally find coffee from all around the world. You can find all different styles of coffee from all around the world. New York is a hodgepodge of coffee cultures kind of combined here. But the gist of New York coffee culture is it's to go. It's quick. It's emphasis on taking it and continuing with your day to hustle. Uh, Coffee culture in parts of Europe is different. In France, in Greece, in England, in Ireland, it's a time to chill, to relax and chat with others. In Italy, it's a place to go to the bar, have your shot, and to continue on with your day. Italy, don't take coffee to go. In very few places in Europe, it's not of the original culture to take coffee to go. But here in New York, that's the case. Coffee to go has been kind of the staple since the 1980s or so. From what I can so far research, I think it might be a little bit before that. But yeah, I think that's the big, unique thing about New York. Do you learn anything new about coffee that you didn't know before the documentary? Yeah, I realized how pivotal New York was in coffee around the world. That's why that's the subtitle of the documentary. So the documentary, the official title is "The Caffeinated City," how New York changed the world, how New York City coffee changed the world, and it did in many respects. It did in spreading to-go coffee culture via Starbucks, and we do associate Starbucks with the Seattle company, but through my research, through my interviews, I found out that the Starbucks guys were directly inspired by a coffee store here in New York called Gillies. Harold Schulz, the guy who ended up popularizing Starbucks, is not from Seattle. He's a New Yorker. So this sense of taking your coffee to go in these cardboard cups with a logo on them and a lid is very New York. And it has spread through basically all of America and Canada, and has spread through many parts of Europe where it's pretty ubiquitous to find the to-go coffee in UK and Ireland. You can find to-go coffee in Greece. It's pretty normal nowadays in many parts of the world, and that's because of New York. And that was one of the big revelations I had. The Food Plane says, I enjoy coffee shops in Amsterdam. Oh, that's a very different coffee shop for sure. I wish we had those coffee shops in New York. I kind of like the coffee shop style in Amsterdam. But of course, we all know they don't serve coffee. Well, they might serve coffee, but that's not the reason you go to the coffee shop in Amsterdam. Oleg, nice to see you here. Are you going to visit a coffee plantation? Not in the documentary. The documentary is filmed all in New York City. We don't go outside New York City for this documentary, but an opportunity has presented itself that may involve me filming at a coffee farm in parts of Central America. So crossing fingers, this will happen, and this will just be the beginning of a series about coffee in not just New York, but other parts of the world. Stay tuned. Dr. Tashi, nice to see you here. Brown Eyed Girl says, a wonderful place to go if you're ever interested in learning about how Ethiopians roast coffee is Buna. Yeah, Buna Cafe in Brooklyn, yeah. I've never been, I've heard of it. I think there's a Buna in Inwood, Manhattan, and I think I went there. Silvio says, when would you come to Brazil? Brazil, I want to go at some point. Yeah, I want to go at some point. Some of these places like Brazil, parts of South America, parts of Asia, I kind of want to go with company. Solo travel to Brazil doesn't appeal to me as much. Coffee could be a theme, traveling the world through coffee, says Dr. Tachi. Yes, it can be. Maybe it will be. Food Play says, I think Starbucks helped market exotic coffee. Before Starbucks, specialty coffee was not so popular. Like Starbucks, or not, they helped bring specialty coffee to the world. Yes, yes. Specialty coffee can be directly traced back to Starbucks. And beyond that, Petey's Coffee. And then there's another woman who was really influential in the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest. I forgot her name. But it could be argued that those guys were heavily inspired by New York specialty coffee stores. So there were New York specialty coffee stores, specifically two, Puerto Rico and Gillies, in New York City, that predates the coffee scene of the Pacific Northwest, namely Seattle. So I would say New York is the catalyst for the spread of specialty coffee. Seattle is what really kicked into high gear. And PD's from Berkeley. Okay, yeah, so the West Coast in general. The two specialty coffee shops. Puerto Rico is pretty old, and they're featured in the documentary from 1907. And Gillies is one of the oldest roasters in America, but their coffee stores date back to the early 60s. Hello, Beach Bum. But of course, when it comes to anything, when it comes really to any type of innovation or change in the industry, it's never just one location. But I argue in my documentary that New York is very pivotal to specialty coffee in America. What are the essentials to a great cup of coffee? It's coffee with flavor. Coffee with flavor. Not added flavor. It's the coffee itself, the beans. When brewed, have some flavor that is not just pure bitterness or what people would just describe as a coffee taste. If it could taste more than that, you're already on your way to have a solid cup of coffee. And then I think if it's mixed with milk, the milk has to be good. So I think a good coffee is just coffee that has some flavor, and if it's with milk, it's good milk. If it's bad milk and flavorless coffee, then you have a pretty bad cup of coffee. But I think good coffee, once you try it, you will notice a big difference. But one cannot deny the beauty of having like a good ground coffee brewed at home from some big commercial company. Here in America, for example, it's that type of coffee might not be as what we would deem as good, quote unquote, in terms of quality, but there's a certain beauty to coffee that's from a can in the supermarket that your mom makes at home, or a coffee that you buy in a gasoline station from a machine, or a coffee that's kind of sat there for a little bit too long in the diner. Coffee doesn't always have to be good, if you know what I'm saying. And I think that's why I end up learning in this journey of exploring coffee. It is nice to have an excellent brew, for sure, but is not the only way to enjoy coffee. Hey, Deborah says, sounds wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Deborah. I appreciate that. Laureen says, just got home from getting an iced coffee. So hot and humid here. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, it's hot and humid. Oh, it's humid here. Not too hot. But I'm glad you got yourself iced coffee. That's awesome. I enjoy grinding my own coffee, says DS. It avoids any fillers like walnut shells in my ground coffee. Yes. Yes, I grind my own coffee as well. And I had a tough time articulating why, aside from freshness, why it was better to grind your own coffee. And then DS, I actually saw a video today saying that there's an acceptable amount of insects that can make it into grounded coffee. That's pre-grounded. So grounded in the canister or the bag when you buy in the supermarket, which doesn't sound too pleasant. And then sometimes grounded coffee can be adulterated, meaning that it could have other ingredients just to sell more, or some other flavoring. And then mold is another issue. So coffee is very susceptible. It's like wine, or it's like a good beer, or it's like any type of food that it can easily be ruined by mold, by malpractice on an industrial level with adulteration. It could be old and not fresh. So good coffee, it's worth getting. It's worth getting a good bag of fresh beans that haven't been sitting in the supermarket shelf for 3 months. If possible, if you could do it. Not everyone has access, of course, to a good cup of coffee, but I think if you're in America, you do. In many parts of Europe, you do. I can't speak for other parts of the world, but for as far as I know, in many major cities in America, you'll have access to a good bag of coffee beans. You might have to go to a supermarket that has more specialty coffee options, or go to some grocery store, or go to the local coffee shop. But it is accessible, I think, to many Americans, which is good. Ludo says, have a cup of coffee on me. Ludo, thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Coffee is a ritual for me, says Oleg. Yeah, Oleg, let me know. How is coffee in the Ukraine? I know things are tough, of course, with the war. So my best wishes to the Ukrainian people out there. But when things were normal, and hopefully they'll get back to normal at some point soon, how is the coffee culture in the Ukraine? Food Plane says, any thoughts about the poop coffee? I've tried it once, and I enjoyed it. So it is weird. And I can imagine I wouldn't be too trusting in having it from just anywhere. But yeah, it's a very good coffee. Poop coffee, for people who don't know, it's a Kapi Luwak, I think it's called. And it's like, I think it's from Indonesia, if I'm correct. And it's this little rodent that eats coffee beans. And then its enzymes somehow process the coffee beans. And the coffee beans basically come out whole, but they're just processed through the intestines of this rodent. And you end up having a very interesting flavored coffee. Do you like Dunkin'? So I personally wouldn't really drink Dunkin' much, but I have realized that Dunkin' has vastly improved their quality of iced coffee, of cold brew. It's way better now. So Dunkin' is improving, which is good. It's good that these major coffee companies in the U.S., like Dunkin' Donuts, like Starbucks, continue to improve their coffee. So it's up and down. Sometimes they are worse, but Dunkin' is a good, solid, fast food coffee. I would say if you compare Dunkin' to a good coffee shop in your local city, the good coffee shop will win out. But Dunkin' is always a solid option. Dunkin' has done a good job in providing pretty good coffee for the masses here in many parts of the U.S. Please Cap says, Robusta coffee. I really love Robusta coffee. It's so deeply underrated here in the US, and this is why Italian espresso is way better, in my opinion. Italian espresso, first of all, especially when it comes to espresso, and this is covered also in the documentary, espresso in America, in many major specialty coffee shops. Specialty coffee is basically not a major brand, not fast food, not a diner. Specialty coffee is basically the local coffee shop or some type of coffee shop chain that's not crazy big, that tends to get beans of a higher quality and tends to have more options with its beans. So when it comes to specialty coffee shops in America, their espresso still lacks, still in my opinion, is nowhere near as good as Italy or another country like Greece, because espresso here, a lot of specialty coffee shops would use a single origin blend. I mean, not blend, a single origin coffee. So basically, the coffee comes from one country, and sometimes one farm from a particular country. Single origin is good for a pour over, for filtered coffee, or a drip coffee, because single origin, since it's coming from one farm, it's only one type of bean from one type of farm, from a particular country. You end up having a very unique coffee that will be different from another farm from another country. Just like wine, a good wine from a particular farm, from a particular region, from a particular country, like a Sauvignon Blanc from France, will be very interesting and very unique compared to a what's another white wine? I gotta know my wines a little bit better. Give me another name for a white wine. Sauvignon Blanc, and there is the names are escaping me right now. But another white wine type from another region, say, or Riesling. Okay, there we go. A Sauvignon Blanc from a specific farm in France is going to taste different from a Riesling from that specific region of Germany, from a specific farm in Germany. That's single origin coffee. It's the same thing as wine. Like wine, if you start blending wines, the unique character of each individual type of grape and farm is going to be lost because you're blending it. You might come up with something interesting. And coffee, it's even better, because coffee, unlike wine, when you get a blend, you do end up getting a very interesting cup of coffee. For a drip, may not as interesting, but for espresso, if you have a single origin bean for espresso, you end up having a very sharp taste to it. It's a bit too clean, a bit too simple, a bit too just not much oomph to a single origin espresso. And this is the case with a lot of espressos in general in America. Even if they're not single origin, with a lot of blends in America, they kind of lack that oomph. That oomph that Italy does well is that they use what's called Robusta beans. So there's two main types of coffee varieties in the world. There's Arabica beans and there's Robusta beans. Arabica beans is what is more flavorful, has more complex notes, has more uniqueness to the taste, the flavors, the aroma. Arabica is also not that acidic. Arabica is also more lighter. It could be brewed to be lighter. So Arabica is actually the better type of variety of coffee for flavor. But Robusta is interesting. Robusta is stronger. It's punchier. It's more acidic. It's more caffeinated. It has more caffeine. Robusta beans sometimes have a little bit of a more earthy flavor to them. Robusta beans also can produce more crema when making an espresso. So the Italians have been very smart to combine a variety of different Arabica beans and use a little bit of Robusta in order to make a espresso that is chocolatey, nutty, and has crema. Crema is basically the cream of the espresso. When you pour espresso, you'll notice more crema on it. What appears to be cream, of course, is not milk. You'll notice from more American cafes, there's not much crema in your espresso. And that's the thing. I think that's why coffee in Italy espresso in Italy is way better. It's because they use Robusta there. But here in America, Robusta has a bad rap because Robusta was seen as a lesser coffee because in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in order to cut costs from these major coffee companies and major coffee farms, like countries like in Brazil, they would just use a lot of Robusta because Robusta is also cheaper to produce for various reasons. I think one of the reasons is it grows better in sun. So you don't need to just grow the coffee beans in a humid mountainous area, but instead you can have them in massive farms under the sunlight. I think that's the main difference with Robusta. So Robusta was overly used in early American coffee culture, or American coffee culture from 100 years ago, all the way to about the 1950s or 60s with big companies like Folgers and Maxwell House. They were using way more Robusta in order to cut costs and have a stronger tasting coffee because the coffee would be so overly processed that you needed some strong flavor to kick through, and Robusta got a bad rap. It was seen as lower quality. That's not the case. Robusta is not low quality. Robusta is just, it's cheaper to make. Yes, it's cheaper to produce. It doesn't taste good on its own, but it's not purely low quality. Robusta could be very helpful. But Robusta is better not drunk alone, I think. I haven't been in Vietnam where they are mostly making coffee that are pure Robustas. I've tried a pure Robusta once when I went to Berlin, and that was very interesting. But Robusta can be very powerful, and the Italians know how to use it. Here in America, Americans associate with low quality, and we don't use it. We advertise 100% Arabica. That's kind of fading out, luckily, but still the case. And that's why in certain parts of the Caribbean as well, Puerto Rico, and I imagine Cuba, I haven't been to Cuba, but I imagine in Cuba, the coffee also tends to be a bit better because they do use also a little bit of Robusta. And I assume other countries in Europe, like Greece and Spain and France, and most likely the UK, also probably use a little bit of Robusta in their beans. So that's, long story short, espresso, in my opinion, is way better in Italy. Filtered coffee is pretty damn amazing here in America. Cold brew is amazing here in America. Iced coffee is amazing here in America. But espresso still kind of falls behind. Jacqueline, nice to see you here. Welcome. Have you tried snuff? I've never tried snuff. No. Mr. Bot says, Tim Wendelbo, I'm not sure who Tim Wendelbo is, makes light roasted for a cup with clarity, brightness, and sweetness, and a little bitterness. Yes, it's good for a pour over or a drip coffee or French press. Actually, more pour over or drip, or more for a pour over or drip is better a light roast. A single origin. You'll get a very, very unique cup of coffee. It's really amazing. instant coffee tends to use Robusta beans. Yes, it does. Because it's so heavily processed that the Robusta bean is so strong in flavor that it still kicks through despite the heavy processing that they go through. It's probably a more complicated answer, but I'm giving you my best summary of it. How many cups of coffee do you consume daily? I tend to usually drink 2 separate cups of coffee. Here in America, most coffees are made with 2 shots of espresso, so I drink about 4 shots of espresso per day. AK says, imagine being a coffee connoisseur. You know, in the documentary, you will see how someone could be a coffee connoisseur. I'm just talking right now. In the documentary, you will actually see. You will see what's called cupping, which is trying different coffees and discerning the different notes in the coffee, the different levels of body and acidity in the coffee, and then the second one is roasting, which is blending different types of coffee or cooking the bean in a way that you get unique taste from it. No need to watch the documentary. It's all in this live, says Susie. Well, at this point, yes. There's a lot. Justine says, do you like decaf? I don't drink too much decaf. On some occasions, I do like decaf. I have been overly caffeinated sometimes. And decaf has been nice. Mr. Bot, nice to see you here. Mr. Bot says, my buddy swears to your friend Tim Wendelboe in terms of how he roasts his coffee. Oh, cool. Have you had Kenya coffee? Yes, I've had Kenya coffee, Dr. Tashi. It's fairly common here in New York City, especially for pour-overs. Chris says, thank you so much for the awesome content. New York City is arguably the epitome of cities. Epitome of cities. Ooh, yes, you're right. I'll go for 60% Arabica, 40% Robusta. I agree. I think that's why I love also classic French coffee. Even though it might not be as good all the time like Italian espresso. French coffee, I think, is still pretty damn good. Justine says, do you like Devotion? I am not the biggest fan of Devotion. I don't know why. I think the main concern is it's too light. Too shrill is a good word. Repeat your question if you left one. Susie was asking a question. Susie asked the question again. I think I missed it. Why did Mozart like dirty jokes? Says please clap. I explained this in the Instagram story and the live video. Mozart liked dirty jokes because in that area of Austria that is German speaking, those type of jokes that involve potty humor, as we would call it in America, was more normal. Remember, each culture around the world has a different style of humor, and in the U.S., it's fairly normal to be sarcastic, and it's fairly normal to be use hyperbole to exaggerate in American humor. It's very normal. If you go to a different country, if you go to France, using hyperbole is not funny. Using hyperbole is stupid to the French. It's a bit silly, ridiculous. There's just cultural preference. And sarcasm to some countries. What's a good example of a country that doesn't like sarcasm? The Dutch. No, the Dutch is not a good example. The Germans. Sarcasm to the Germans is a bit low humor. It's kind of, you're wasting people's time by being sarcastic, I think, in German culture. Or at least that's what I'm assuming. I haven't spent that much time in German culture. But, and that's the same thing with Mozart. Mozart, potty humor in that area of Austria for a very long time was just normal humor. And from our modern sensibilities, especially from American point of view or from other Western European countries, it just seems crude. But to Mozart, it was rather normal. Have you had any robot cafes? Says Susie. No, I've not tried a robot cafe yet. What's your favorite New York City coffee shop? It's a hard question to answer. Really hard question to answer. I would say, in terms of aesthetics, if you're a tourist and want to visit a coffee shop, go to Cafe Reggio in Greenwich Village. It doesn't have the best coffee, but it's so gorgeous and it has a long history. For sure, you'll have a great time in Cafe Reggio. The coffee is good. It's not the best, but it is a gorgeous place. And I've learned that I'd rather have coffee in a gorgeous place. I'd rather have okay coffee in a gorgeous place than in a place that's homey and cozy and beautiful and historic than having great coffee in an overly minimalistic, sterile coffee shop. And my coffee documentary literally talks about this. That's the third act of the coffee documentary. So, Cafe Reggio is great, but I think a coffee shop that really maintains a balance of great coffee and it's beautiful is Cafe Fellini. Specifically the Soho location. Cafe Fellini in Soho has great coffee and it's gorgeous. Wendy says, do you love cold brew? I love cold brew. Cold brew is one of my favorite coffees. Really, I love cold brew. It's amazing. D. Scott says, I love mud coffee. Mud coffee is amazing. Yeah, it's great coffee. Susie says, you should live stream from the robot cafes. I have not heard of the robot cafes. Post it on Urbanist of the World, Susie. I would love to see what you're referring to. Have you tried Irish coffee? Yes, I have tried Irish coffee. It is normal in bars here in America. I am remiss that's tough to find an Irish coffee made with good coffee. And good whipped cream. I think the better place to have an Irish coffee, ironically, is Italy. You have an Irish coffee in Italy, you will be blown away. Yeah, have an Irish coffee in Italy. I think that's the best country to have an Irish coffee, ironically. Of course, Ireland, that's where Irish coffee comes from. But Ireland, the downside is where you would usually buy Irish coffee would be at a pub. And the pub typically does not have that good coffee. Or has okay coffee. And the coffee sometimes is not made with an espresso machine, or it's not a good drip. It's coffee made from like a button machine. That's why I saw in Ireland, which was unfortunate because Irish coffee shops are really good. I had a lot of great coffee in Ireland, but I couldn't find good coffee in a pub, and especially good coffee in a pub that would make a good Irish coffee out of it. And then the whipped cream wouldn't be fresh. So I love when Irish coffee is made with good espresso and good whipped cream, and then you have an excellent Irish coffee. And that is in Italy. Basically, in Italy, you'll find great Irish coffee almost anywhere. Tony says, I love this. It's good to know where to get good coffee or the surroundings. Hey, Tony. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that. You have a point. The ambiance and the beauty adds to the flavor. Yes. Yeah, because it's important to not get too pretentious about coffee. And this is what I learned in my own documentary. It's a big revelation. I think people who are skeptical of coffee, of people who are deem themselves as coffee connoisseurs, as knowledgeable about coffee, your skepticism is well merited. And I end up realizing in the making of this documentary that while coffee can be a beautiful brew that can have amazing flavor and exquisite nuance to it, the coffee is still just a thing. The real beauty is where you have your coffee, with whom you have your coffee with. And it's not, I don't mean to get overly sentimental about it, but it is the truth. Think about the best coffees you've had in your life. And I would say among most of the memories you have of the best coffee in your life wasn't about the coffee. It was the people or the place, or a combination of both. Sometimes it's about the coffee. And if you have all three, then yeah, it's a truly magical experience. But yeah, coffee is about where you're having it, for sure. And I think the same thing applies to wine, the same thing applies to many foods. I like biscuits with my coffee or cream cake. Yeah, I like that too. I wish here in America we would adopt the practice of providing a biscuit or a cookie with our coffee. That is very normal in the Netherlands, which I really enjoyed, and in some parts of the UK as well. So I wish we did that in America. That would be nice. Ariel has some of the best coffees in the most dingiest of places. Yes. Yeah, that can happen as well. Sometimes we have a great cup of coffee in a place we least expect it, too. I know one of the better cups of coffee I've ever had was in Chamonix, France, halfway through the cable car. There's like a little shack that has coffee, beer, cakes, sandwiches, and you have amazing views of Chamonix and the mountain ranges. And I remember having that cup of coffee as the clouds start parting and you see the beautiful views of the French Alps. And the coffee wasn't anything particularly interesting. It was pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the best coffee I've ever had just for the coffee. But the fact that it was combined with sitting on a mountain, with sitting in the clouds, and then seeing the views of the Alps, having a peaceful time, that is beautiful. That is a good cup of coffee. They talk about coffee and peanut butter being a good match. I agree. You combine, especially cold brew or iced coffee, you combine iced coffee or cold brew with peanut butter or cashew butter, which I also love. Oh my God. It is a legendary combination. This is going to sound weird. Take a spoonful of peanut butter and then take a sip of your cold brew coffee or iced coffee, and you're going to be introduced to a whole new way of tasting things. So welcome everyone. Stay tuned. 7 p.m. on September 2nd, this Monday, 7 p.m. I'm going to premiere my coffee documentary on YouTube. And after this, we're going to have a Q&A. Just like right now. So I got to basically repeat this again after the coffee documentary. So yeah, stay tuned. 7 p.m. It's an hour and 10 minutes. It's going to be a fun time. I hope everyone comes and enjoys. Brown Eyed Girl says, the worst coffee I had in my opinion is diner coffee. They do not know how to clean inside the stainless glass steel. Yes. 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 Diner coffee, bodega coffee that's left heated for too long is not so good. Wendy says, will you be there? Yes, I will be. I'll be live streaming. Oh, well, I will be commenting on the premiere, but I'll be live streaming afterwards. Oleg says, your great cup of coffee in Chamonix, France was due to oxygen deprivation. I came back from 10,000 plus feet high. So yes, I did have some altitude sickness. In the good, I had the good parts of it. But yeah. That could be the case. Dr. Tashi says, I'm excited. Oh, I'm so glad you are. Ron Girl says, I don't think he discusses other people here. Who are you referring to? Justine says, Yahoo! Looking forward. Drinking mud coffee reminds me of my grandparents. Oh, Veronique, that's amazing. Please Clap says, thoughts on Action Kid. I hope he heals back fast. That is terrible to hear. Especially riding a scooter, of all things. I hope he recovers quickly. It does suck. I haven't experienced something like that, an injury like that. So I can only imagine the frustration and the pain that he's going through. And I hope he heals up quickly. And it sucks because the injury he had in his foot, it's his livelihood. Same thing with me, and same thing with a lot of live streamers out there. It's our job is to walk, to be out there in the city, and it sucks to not be able to do that, for sure. So round the parts to Action Kid. Hopefully he heals up very quickly. Nebula says it's 1 a.m. French time. I'll try to stay awake. Yeah. It is 1 a.m. It's tough finding a good time for everyone. Definitely tough. If I do it too early, Americans won't tune in. If I do it too late, Europeans will be asleep. So it's a tough balancing act. Okay, so I'm going to stick around for 5 more minutes. Feel free to ask me anything. I was introduced to coffee back in my teens, says Justine, by my mom. We would go to Lygon Street, Carlton, the Italy of Melbourne, Australia. Hey, you had good Italian coffee in Australia. I've heard legendary things about coffee in Australia, and I'm very curious to experience it firsthand. Very, very curious. In my documentary, I feature 2 prominent Aussies, who are running excellent coffee shops here in New York City. So Australians have had a very recent influence on New York City coffee. So that's awesome to hear. I can't wait to visit Melbourne at some point. Hey, Irene says, what happened to Action Kid? He had a crash with his scooter, I think, and he injured his foot pretty seriously. More information can be found on his channel. Aqua says, what do you do? I sit and I read. And that's pretty much it. I do a lot. I'm a content creator. So where you're watching right now, I'm working. You're watching me work. So please, shh. I'm concentrating over here. This is very important work right now. So I make videos, I make live streams, I make documentaries, I make short videos, I make all the videos. Every video you ever thought of, I make it. I run the OnlyFans. I mean, never mind. I don't run the OnlyFans. No. OnlyFlans, for sure. John says, where you been? John, I've been working on the documentary. I've been working on a few big collaborations. And I've been taking it easy also the past week. Enjoying life. I think it's important when one works, especially if no one's telling you when to take a vacation, because I run my own business. it's important to take breaks, to enjoy life, to not have too many things to do, so life can come to you. And that's what I've been doing. I've been enjoying life, but I'm still making cool stuff. So I am making a coffee documentary, which is coming out soon. Dr. Tashi says, Ariel, the hair is hairy and it's perfectly swooped. Indeed, it is swooped. Souped and swapped and souped. It's all the things. Thank you. Appreciate that. Brett says, thank you. Hey, Brett, nice to see you here. Aqua says, sense of humor, I see. No, I do not have a sense of humor. It's this is a very serious show. A. Deborah says, I love seeing your coffee plantation tour in Puerto Rico. Yes. That plantation hasn't been in service in like a century, but it was nice to visit a historic coffee plantation, and I can't wait to visit more. Rune says, are you home for once? I am indeed in back in my place. I am indeed. I can't wait to travel. You will be seeing more travel late September, early October. You'll be seeing 2 countries I've been to before, but I can't wait to show you more interesting things about these countries. Thoughts, Please Clap says, thoughts on the Olympic breakdancing? There were some people who were really, really good. Yeah, really, really good. I was shocked that the Australia team managed to get qualified for the Olympics. What do you say about the Venezuelan gangs in Colorado? Well, I've never been to Colorado. I don't know what's happening there. In New York, unfortunately, yes, we do have more gangs, specifically Venezuelans. It does suck. It does suck. I don't think it affects a tourist too much. So don't worry if you're traveling to New York as a tourist. Generally, the tourist areas are still very, very safe, very calm, very protected by police, and lots of surveillance. So generally, touristy areas in New York are very, very the safest places in the world. So you'll be okay. What's your next documentary? History of Salsa? Says Susie. My next documentary is The Edinburgh Urbanist, which I hope to release Christmas time. Crossing fingers. I really do hope to release it by Christmas time, because I think it will be a perfect Christmas time documentary series. It'll be a few episodes. The Edinburgh Urbanist, coming out soon. It will be the sequel to The Athens Urbanist. And after that, oh no, I had an opportunity presented to me to continue the coffee documentary series in other parts of the world. So maybe that could happen. Wendy says it'll come out Christmas 2035. Well, documentaries are a long process. I still make them fairly quickly. Fairly quickly, which is good. Susie says the Edinburgh Urbanist hasn't been filmed yet. Yes, it was filmed last October. So when I went live, I didn't go live too much in Edinburgh in October of 2023. I went live maybe like 2 times, 3 times. But I was filming the Edinburgh Urbanist. That's Edinburgh Urbanist is already filmed. I featured 2 awesome urbanists from Edinburgh also. I'm so happy that people will get to meet Susie and Gary from Edinburgh in my documentary series, among many other awesome people in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is going to be very fascinating. Edinburgh is going to be my most history-heavy documentary, for sure. Because Edinburgh, Scotland, the capital of Scotland, is so immersed in history. So this fall, I'm going to be researching a lot about Scottish history. So it's going to be a long, long process. Pythagorean Edition says, looking forward, Ariel. Cheering you from Toronto. Hey, man, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Gary and Susie may have forgotten about it. Oh, I think they're very excited. They're very excited for it. Miss Love, nice to see you here. What's your favorite type of coffee? Freddo Espresso. It's 2 shots of espresso poured over ice, then whipped. So it gets very frothy, and then poured over more ice. And that is a Freddo Espresso. Craig Ferguson is from Scotland. He is indeed. He is indeed. Wendy says about live streams. Will you do more live streams soon? There will be a live stream after the coffee documentary as a Q&A. And then there'll be more live streams in the third week of October. The second week of... third week of October. Third week of September. Third week of September, there will be live streams. Starting third week of September for about a month. You'll be seeing places... that'll be really cool. I won't reveal where I'm going, but they'll be really cool. You'll see some familiar places. You'll see some new places. They'll be in 2 countries I've been to before, but you'll see different places within those countries. Looking forward to Edinburgh documentary, says Laureen. Scottsdale is on my bucket list. Scottsdale, are you referring to Scotland as opposed to Scottsdale, Arizona? Yeah, I'm so glad you're excited for the Edinburgh documentary. Susie says no more live streams in New York. No, not in the very near future. Not in the very near future. Maybe a little bit later. But no, not right now. And Wendy says, yeah, and Pythagorean is having a Freddo Espresso right now. Oh, you are? That's amazing. Wow, this was an awesome conversation. I'm so glad so many people tuned in. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Yes, you. I appreciate you. Ved says, are you visiting Belfast? I did in 2021. September of 2021. Check it out. I have like 3 days in Belfast of live videos and short videos as well. Rune says Inverness. Inverness in summer of 2022. I went to Inverness, and I returned again later. I went to Inverness twice. Summer of 2022. I have videos at Inverness. Any plans to screen your coffee documentary at coffee festivals? Says Jim Burrows. No plans to screen it at coffee festivals. I would love to, but it just doesn't align with the coffee festival right now. I'd rather post it right now on YouTube rather than wait. But maybe the next coffee documentary I can consider premiering at some coffee festival. The New York one specifically, which I think happens in March. So thank you everyone so much for tuning in. We need a Hollywood live stream in New York. Maybe, Justine. Thank you everyone. Shaky Dave says you're looking great. Thank you so much, Shaky Dave. Thank you everyone for watching. All you guys are amazing, wonderful human beings. Thank you so much for being a great audience. Stay tuned. This Monday, September 2nd at 7 p.m. on YouTube, this channel, Urbanists Exploring Cities, you'll be seeing the coffee documentary premiered live. I'll be in the chat. Many other people will be in the chat. And afterwards, I'm going to do a Q&A just like this for everyone. We're going to drink something, like a good Negroni or something like that. Maybe I'll make some coffee cocktail. Who knows? But stay tuned. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Keep being awesome. And always keep on exploring. And stay caffeinated, my friends. Bye-bye.